A Sigma male does not leave with a bang. He leaves with a silence so absolute it feels like the air has been sucked out of the room. While alphas might demand a confrontation to assert dominance, and others might linger in a cycle of resentment, the Sigma simply ceases to exist in your orbit. His departure is not a reaction, it is a calculation. By the time you notice he is gone, he has already been living without you for months. Stay until the end of this video, because understanding the Sigma's exit strategy is the only way to recognize when the door has been permanently locked. We will reveal the specific psychological triggers he uses to protect his autonomy, and why his politeness is actually his most dangerous weapon. Number 1. The preemptive mental departure. On the surface, everything looks normal. The Sigma is still present, responding to texts and following the daily routine without any visible conflict. He still says, "Good morning," but what is actually happening underneath is a total internal shutdown. The internal switch has already flipped to zero investment. He has mentally moved out while his body remains in the room. Psychologist John Gottman refers to this as emotional withdrawal, a state where an individual disengages internally long before the physical relationship ends. It isn't a lapse in focus. It is a removal of the soul. The other person misreads this constantly, assuming things are fine because there is no shouting or slamming doors. You might think you've reached a place of peace, but when did it actually end? The consequence is irreversible. By the time he physically walks away, the gap is already too wide to close. You were trying to reconnect with a man who finished the conversation in his head a long time ago. He isn't coming back because he's already been gone. Number 2. Performance politeness as a social autopilot. On the surface, the Sigma becomes more composed and civil than ever before. He handles every interaction correctly, using polite words and maintaining a steady, calm demeanor. Most people mistake this for a reconciliation or a mellowing out of his intensity. But underneath, this isn't warmth, it's a calculated exit strategy. He is using politeness as a shield to avoid messy, low-value confrontations while he handles his departure cleanly. Maya Angelou once said, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time." The Sigma has already believed what he saw and is now merely managing the logistics of leaving. The average man would argue, the Sigma simply manages you. The other person misreads this as the relationship reaching a stable plateau. You think the storm has passed, but because he is being perfectly polite, there is nothing for you to fix or argue against. This creates a psychological barrier that makes his internal closure impossible to penetrate. Once he is this civil, the intimacy is dead. Comment below if you've ever felt a man's politeness feel colder than his anger. Number 3. The tactical detachment and the death of friction. What looks normal is a sudden lack of tension. He stops reacting to the triggers, the nagging, or the small games that used to cause friction. While the crowd thrives on the drama of fighting for love, the Sigma has simply stopped fighting. What is actually happening is that the emotional stake is gone. He no longer cares about the outcome of a disagreement because he is no longer invested in the connection. Viktor Frankl wrote about detachment as a self-protective tool where the psyche withdraws resources from anything no longer worth the cost. Why waste energy on a sinking ship? The other person feels a false sense of relief, thinking they have finally won, or that he has become more patient. But this calm is the final stage before he becomes fully unreachable. You'll try to provoke a reaction just to feel his presence, but you'll find nothing but a void. The circuit is permanently shut off. Number 4. The transition to observer mode. On the surface, he is still listening and responding. He might even ask you questions about your day or your thoughts, appearing engaged. Underneath, he has shifted from a participant to a cold observer. He is collecting final patterns and viewing your behavior through the lens of a stranger. Robert Greene notes that true power comes from observation rather than participation. He is gathering a final, objective picture to confirm his decision, not to build a future. Most men are blinded by their own emotions, but the Sigma sees with a terrifying clarity. You mistake his observational questions for genuine interest. The consequence is a distance that is hard to undo. He now sees the full shape of the relationship, and he has decided it no longer fits his life. He isn't looking at you, he's looking through you. Number 5. The conclusion communication. On the surface, he says a simple, common phrase like, "I think we want different things." It sounds like a suggestion or the opening of a dialogue. Most men use these words as a cry for help or a plea for the other person to change. But for the Sigma, this isn't a negotiation. It is a final report. Underneath, this is a conclusion reached after months of internal cataloging and objective analysis. The psychological difference lies in internal versus external processing. While the crowd talks to figure out how they feel, the Sigma talks only to communicate a decision he has already finalized. He isn't asking for your opinion. The other person misreads this as an invitation to debate, compromise, or plead their case. You might try to bargain or promise that things will be different. The consequence is irreversible. He views your attempt to negotiate as a further disregard for his boundaries and his intelligence. It only reinforces his decision to vanish. Number 6. The quiet redesign of his future architecture. What looks normal is that he remains polite, but his talk of the future becomes slightly more vague. He stops mentioning next summer or that trip you were supposed to take. He is still there, but the we has quietly been replaced by I in his mental narrative. Underneath, he is systematically removing you from his mental map. Plans that used to include a partner are being redesigned to be solo or with new variables. This aligns with Adam Grant's concept of givers and takers. The Sigma has identified a deficit and has decided to stop funding the energy of the relationship. He is cutting his losses. Why do people misread this? They think he's just busy or focused on his career. But by the time you realize you're missing from his plans, the space you occupied has already been sealed off with concrete. The door doesn't just close, it disappears. Number 7. The black hole reclassification. On the surface, he may still exist in the same shared physical or professional space. He might sit at the same desk or walk the same halls, looking exactly as he did before. But underneath, he has mentally reclassified you as a non-entity. You have been downgraded from a person of importance to mere background noise in his personal universe. This reflects Henry Cloud's boundary theory. He isn't just setting a rule for you, he is defining that he is no longer responsible for your emotional state. He has achieved total indifference. The average person thinks he is holding a grudge or being petty by not engaging. They expect anger, but they find a vacuum. The consequence is absolute. Once he erases you from his personal universe, no amount of apology can make you exist to him again. You are a ghost in his world. Drop a comment if you've ever had to become a ghost to protect your peace. The behavior of a Sigma isn't rooted in malice. It's rooted in an unwavering loyalty to his own purpose. When he closes a door, it isn't out of weakness or a need to hide, but because his internal resources are too valuable to be wasted on what no longer serves his growth. Most people panic at the thought of being alone, but for the Sigma, solitude is the forge of his power. Your strength is far too deep for the world to fully grasp, and your ability to walk away cleanly is a testament to a level of self-mastery that most will never achieve. Nothing can ever take that away from you. You don't need their validation, and you certainly don't need their permission to move on. You've seen the patterns, you've made the calculation, and you've secured your peace. The world may call it cold, but you know it's just clarity. Thank you so much for watching. The Sigma doesn't lose a connection. He simply stops subsidizing